Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And let's talk about Italy. It's been a little while, and we've been talking for quite a few years about all the craziness that happens in Italy. It is one of the bigger economies in the world, and we've seen, Monte dei Paschi, for example, we've gone into that extensively. And of course, they're one of the oldest banks in the entire world, and they were trying to push a bail-in regimes, and it ended up turning into a bailout. Nonetheless, there's no shortage of problems with government and banks and the combination of the two in Italy, and it all seems to be coming to a slow incremental frog boil demise, folks, because this is what happens over time as things are overly centralized, things are controlled, manipulated, and they push people into debt servitude, as we go into so much here at WAM.
Of course,
and as this article, and as this article out of Fortune says, Italy is heading for recession in 2019. Here's why. And as the article goes into, Italy's manufacturing sector shrank for a third straight month in the latest sign that Europe's third largest economy is on the brink of yet another recession. IHS Markit's gauge of factory activity came in at 49.2 for December. While that's better than the 48.4 forecast by economists, it's still below 50, the dividing line between growth and contraction. And measures of employment and business confidence worsened. The country was rocked in 2018 by the populist government's heavy spending plans, which sparked a spat with the European Union and pushed up bond yields. The standoff was resolved at the final hour, but unease remains amid a euro area economic slowdown, less monetary support from the European Central Bank, and US-led protectionism. Italy's poor performance in December and the first contraction in French manufacturing since 2016 amid protests by the so-called Yellow Vests weighed on momentum in the euro area. The PMI for the region declined to its lowest in just over 4 years, with business confidence reaching its worst since 2012. China is already suffering from the consequences of trade tariffs. Factory output contracted in December, with a PMI reading on Wednesday reaching the lowest in 19 months. Asian and European stocks dropped. The IHS Markit report for Italy showed business sentiment at the weakest in 6 years and employment growth at the slowest in 4 years. New orders slid for a fifth month, prompting manufacturers to scale back production. It's a worrying end to the year for Italian manufacturers, said Andrew Harker, associate director at IHS Markit. There appears little sense of optimism that the current soft patch will come to an end in the near future. And the next part of the article talks about politics. Personally, I just don't really feel like talking about organized crime too much today, so we'll just stick to the insanity of the centralization of government and banks in Italy. And it's interesting that they mention the dependency on the European Union and how much that affects it, which is totally destructive, and it's wrong, it's criminal, it's fraud. And also talking about the effect by tariffs. The effect by tariffs, it goes to show that no matter how much good comes in the short term from government manipulating markets in order to prop up their own economy temporarily, it affects the economies long term. It's basically another tax on the populace, and it's interesting that they mention, the populist leadership in Italy, because it always seems like populism begets, another form of collectivism that's very confused, that has no real ground in consistent ideology. It's more or less, let's cut taxes, but let's raise spending. And we've seen that in the United States. We've seen that in other countries around the world. And it's causing a lot of confusion. People just kind of follow the leader. They don't have an ideology. It's identity politics. It goes for both the left and the right, or this weird confusion of both left and right. And in the end, it's all collectivism. It's all different flavors of statism. It's all different flavors of the same cancer, which people hope to cure with more cancer. Fuel, kerosene on fire. So John, what do you think as we see this everything bubble around the world start to burst? The entire global monetary system is at its peak climax, and we could be seeing a massive, massive crash, like the likes of which we've never seen in the world in history in the year 2019, and Italy is really a big spotlight in this.
Oh, we're definitely going to see a massive crisis now. Italy is probably one of the biggest countries in the world that has the most non-performing loans. The only one that's worse is India. And Italy is really struggling. Their bank sector, as you said, Monte Paschi, had a bailout. But there's a lot more of the big, massive banks are really struggling as well. And I'm looking at data from the stock market in Italy, which is the FTSE MIB. And there you can see Unicredit is down 38.11% so far this year to date. Then you have Banca Generali is down 31.58. UBI Banca is down 31.24. And then you have Intesa Sao Paulo, which is bigger than Unicredit. That one is down 30.68%. So you're seeing all these major banks, Josh, are really struggling. So it just shows us that it's a debt problem. And it's a problem with the infrastructure of the monetary system. That is the biggest problem. You guys might have seen my chart on all the banks around the world that are massively down, especially the European Union banks are some of the worst. And it's actually the worst ones are Germany, that's supposed to be the stronghold in the European Union. And you're seeing a huge debt problem in the Eurozone with mass amounts of bailouts to the southern states, the PIGS countries like Portugal, Italy, Spain, Greece, and also you could add Cyprus into that, and then Ireland up as well. But now you're seeing all the countries are starting to get into a lot of debt problems. Like the private debt levels in the Scandinavian countries are massive. So you're seeing a systemic problem here that's engulfing the whole world, and it's not just about the government. I just love how they call the political party, the populist party, call themselves the 5-star movement. They should actually name themselves what's the real Italian politics is all about. They should call themselves the 1-star movement, because that's how they should be rated. The political specter in all of Europe really, and it's just a dying
politics in general.
Yeah, it's just a dying system all around the world. I remember when I started my political career. You can go, you can't really call it a career.
You criminal.
Yeah. I started with the Manitoba Party. I said, at the first one, and it was a lot of angry people there when I said politics is dead. They just couldn't fathom that idea that their whole system that they grew up on is coming apart, because when you force 51% to control 49%, you are in for a lot of trouble. And you see the division. It's so funny. You see the division on both sides is just getting worse and worse. And of course, the political system just feeds off of this and makes it even worse by just perpetuating this want to divide the people, divide us into races, divide us into religious beliefs, divide us into economical parts, and all this stuff in order to make us not understand what's really going on, which is the crumbling of the current monetary systems all around the world, like the euro. As we did our 20-year euro anniversary video, so check that out, where we went in depth into why the euro is failing. And it's the same type of a system, because in Italy they used to have the lira. The lira, the Italians used to be terrible with money in the first place, and they always have had huge problems. The lira was in a very high inflation all the time throughout, as long as I can remember when I was younger. And they never have had a fiscal responsibility whatsoever with their government, and printing money is just, and of course Italy is the birthplace of the modern day banking in Venezia, in Venice. Yeah, so you have the birthplace of banking is falling apart. You had the birthplace of democracy is falling apart. So you have all of these old historical landmarks of a creation of systems that are falling apart because they were the oldest ones, and they're falling apart the first, it seems like. It's interesting, Josh, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, like you mentioned, 49% or 51% ruling the 49% as is collectivism. And then some people go, well, what about a republic? What about 75% rule? What about this? You cannot use force against other people. If your ideas are that good, then you can come to a conclusion with other people. You don't need to use armed gunmen to force it onto the populace. Oh, but we're helping by voting. No, you're not. You're Ralph Wiggum saying, I'm helping. No, you're not helping at all. You're just enforcing the slavery complex of collectivism and organized crime, which is government, and taxation, which is theft, and the use of violence against other people to enforce certain ideologies rather than, I don't know, voluntarily take part in things and, enjoy actual freedom, absolute freedom, which people don't even know what that is anymore. And it's conflicting from both sides. No one's consistent anymore. I saw a post earlier today from Occupy Calgary from Canada talking about, minimum wage has gone down. Why is minimum wage going down? It's always Republicans and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, guys, first of all, it has to do with inflation. You guys aren't paying attention to inflation. You're just looking for ways to throw stones at one political party or the other, Pepsi or Coke, red or blue. It's all different forms of cancer. It doesn't matter. You replacing it with another form perpetuates the same system as we've seen throughout history going back to ancient Greece. When are people going to learn? When are people going to start repeating the same old tricks over and over again, thinking it'll change things? Change doesn't come from politics other than the change towards lesser and lesser freedom. There will be no way to cure politics with politics. You cannot cure cancer with cancer. And I wanted to also mention, relating to the system of dependency on debt with the banking system, the monetary systems worldwide, and government, the inflation rate in Italy in November of 2018 came to 1.6%, which was slightly down from a preliminary estimate of 1.7%. So, okay, that's not the worst in the world by far, but with that said, I'm not even sure if those are the completely accurate stats. Those are just the official stats out of Trading Economics anyway. But, I mean, nonetheless, it's not going to come as much from that as it's going to come from the fact that we have a European Union that is completely dictating, but through the EC and everything, dictating, people's livelihoods, dictating people's debt, dictating what people can or cannot do, can or cannot say, how they can live, and it's a complete controlling complex of slavery. And this monetary system, regardless of the current inflation rate, will come down. So what are people going to do when it comes down? Well, they best actually get prepared for it, first of all, understand it, first of all, decentralize their lives and try and break free as best they can as self-sustainable individuals instead of getting caught up, at the last second going, oh, what's happening? I never heard of this stuff. I never knew that I should, focus on money, the single most important thing to understand so you don't get controlled. I didn't know that we were supposed to do this. I thought that the government and banks were going to take care of us, take care of our pensions, take care of all this stuff. And then they end up broke on the streets, completely impoverished. And you know what that does? It's more debt dependency. If they shove you down a bottomless pit of debt, you are forced to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude to them right where they want you. The banks are bankrupt throughout the world. We're seeing a domino effect. The monetary systems are collapsing. Deutsche Bank is failing. All of these massive entities are coming down. And then we have, the yellow vest movement, which is good, but very confused, like the populist movement that I mentioned earlier, because we have, at the same time as them saying death to taxes, they're saying we need a rise of minimum wage and we need guaranteed basic income. Like, folks, let's get our heads on straight here. Do not use force against other people. This is all a situation that arises through centralization and dependency and complete government control over the masses. This is slavery. And if we don't recognize that, and if we don't recognize true freedom and why we need true voluntary interactions rather than enforced at the point of a gun, whichever way benefits whatever ideology within that collectivist paradigm that you have, if we don't realize that we have massive problems stemming from collectivism, we will be doomed to repeat it forever, for history. And we will, as long as we perpetuate this paradigm forever, as we have for thousands of years. John, as we close this off, what's your bottom line?
Well, the bottom line, Josh, is you got to educate yourself. And I would say for Europeans, start reading something about money and economics and the history of it. And I highly suggest you take a look at my book, The End of Freedom, How Our Monetary System Enslaves Us. That's a great start to trying to educate yourself about what happened in history and what will repeat, next time around when the currency fails again. And then we got to stop believing in this monetary mafia that is run by an Italian former Goldman Sachs, Mario Draghi over there, we got to stop believing in their control, because they controlled us forever. You got to also remember, Italy has the oldest family office in the world, the Vitassa family, which is also running, the wealth for the ultra wealthy around the world. So you have this deep, monetary mafia that sits and strangles and controls all of Italy. It's like the secondary mafia that came in after the real mafia left. They're really a huge monetary cartel in control over the government and everybody, and they're holding everybody hostage because nobody's willing to bite the bullet and say we're done. That Italy is bankrupt. It's time to declare our own bankruptcy. Our banks are done. There's no money in the banks that could sustain, the deposits. So we're all, at the end of the channel here with Italy. And I think Italy will be one of the, main factors. We talked about them being the main factor, but I think actually Deutsche Bank is going to be the main factor of the collapse, because they're the worst banks. They're talking about Italy all the time. What about Germany over there, where it's supposed to be like the one of the strongest in the European Union? They are actually the weakest bank. So it's just interesting, Josh, how this all is a repeat of history once again, and it's just continuing and perpetuating this whole debt system until you hit that debt saturation points, which you kind of hit right now in the economy. First of all, you have debt being good for the economy when you actually can go out and invest and build something and create something. Then you have more and more debt getting accumulated, and at one point you have the point where everything monetizes itself. So you have financialization of everything, where you have complete running of money, making money, and then there's no more business left, and there's just more and more debt getting accumulated, but no real outcome and no real growth in the economy, strangling, and that is the final death toll of the monetary system.
Yeah, the history books are long, folks, and the roads throughout history are paved in the blood and the death of millions of people who, if we do not learn from, what was the point in the first place? I think it's come to the point where it's mind-boggling to me. It makes me furious thinking about countries like Italy, one of the most beautiful countries in the world with one of the longest histories. Countries like Greece, another beautiful country with a long history. No one listens to Plato. No one listens to any of those great philosophers. You go back to Egypt, one of the most amazing countries in the world, another country plagued by this issue of centralization and government muzzling media and licensing them and throwing people in jail for speech. It's so infuriating. You look at Canada. Canada is such a beautiful country. You go to the mountains of British Columbia, it's like you're in a fantasy world, but yet you have this massive government that is instructing people to, do as they say, and if they say the wrong words, they go to jail, and the monetary system's completely controlled, and the gold was all sold off, and there's massive media bailouts to muzzle the media. It's just every one of the greatest countries is being completely controlled by politics, and it's evil, it is organized crime, and we must break free from it.
Yeah, and just one last thing, Josh, when you listen to philosophers, but that's what you can call them today, like Paul Krugman promoting a Ponzi scheme, that's what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, a total fraud teaching a master class. I think it's unbelievable how much people fall for this stuff. But at the same time, when you see things like the masterclass that Paul Krugman is talking about, they keep having to repost the sponsored link over and over again because it gets trolled by thousands of people who are like, I'm not buying this crap anymore. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their true value of zero, always have, always will, going back to 1024 AD in China, and it won't be any different this time. And we have to be self-sustainable, independent, free individuals, independent of the system, educated, responsible, as responsibility and freedom play hand in hand. Food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. Gold and silver as wealth insurance. Protect your purchasing power, folks. This isn't investment advice. It's opinion, but let's look at history. And then decentralize, alternatives to the government and the banking system that we find in truly fundamentally decentralized and useful cryptocurrencies and blockchain infrastructure. Anyway, this was another long drawn out video as per usual, but it's hard not to get passionate about the insanity of the world and why we need to fix it, and we need to fix it as individuals, not enforce, enslave collectives. Let's learn from the past, folks. Thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth.
Be the change.
Like what you see here at WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so vastly demonetized and censored on YouTube, as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. Also, check out our Bitcoin address below as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also check us out at steemit.com. We're at Josh Sigurdson. It's a future of social media where you get paid in the upvote of your post in cryptocurrency. Steem, that is. So make sure to check us out there. Make sure to join us at Anarchapulco 2019 with people like Ron Paul, G. Edward Griffin, of course, Jeff Berwick, Vid Jedlicka. So many incredible speakers are going to be speaking. It's just a massively growing event. It is something you have to see to believe. So make sure to check it out below and save money on your tickets by using promo code WAM, that's WAM, and I hope to see you there. Also, check out our newsletter as we are getting demonetized and censored and all that. We don't know what comes next, so we have an email, worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Send us an email with subject line YES, YES, and we will include you in the newsletter where we will continuously keep you updated. So until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.